You have spent your whole life being told that cleanliness keeps you healthy, and that idea may be the reason you keep getting sick. While modern Americans have been sanitizing countertops and sealing themselves inside climate-controlled homes, Amish families have been living among barn dust, raw milk, fermented vegetables, and garden soil. The result? Some of the lowest rates of asthma, allergies, and chronic disease ever recorded in a Western population. This video walks you through 20 Amish health practices science is only now beginning to explain. One of them involves a light source so old-fashioned, you would never dream it could protect you from disease. And the final secret at number 1 is not a remedy at all. It is something far bigger that reframes everything. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we post new videos every week connecting Amish wisdom with modern health knowledge, empowering you to take charge of your own healing. So, let's get into it. Here are 20 Amish secrets that keep their families disease-free, ranked from remarkable to absolutely life-changing. At number 20, cold water washing of produce, the dirt your body is begging for. Amish families never reached for a bottle of chemical vegetable wash. They pulled carrots and radishes straight from the garden, scrubbed them under cold running well water, and ate them the same day, soil traces and all. What they did not realize is that the tiny organisms clinging to that produce were training their immune systems with every single bite. Modern research has identified soil-based probiotics, particularly one called Bacillus subtilis, that stimulates something called gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which happens to house roughly 70% of your body's immune cells. The Amish were feeding those cells daily without ever knowing the science behind it. You could see the grit under their fingernails at the dinner table, and that grit was doing more for their health than any supplement on a pharmacy shelf. Here is what you can do right now. Grow something small, even a pot of basil or parsley on your windowsill. Rinse it gently under cold water and eat it fresh. You are reintroducing the microbes your gut has been starved of ever since we decided that perfectly waxed, triple-washed supermarket produce was an upgrade. It was not an upgrade, it was a disconnection, and the Amish never made that trade. At number 19, sauerkraut with every heavy meal. Fermented fire for your gut. Walk into any Amish kitchen during a winter supper, and you will find a heavy spread. Pork roast, buttered potatoes, thick gravy, and right there next to the breadbasket, a bowl of tangy, homemade sauerkraut. This was not a garnish. It was digestive medicine, and every Amish grandmother knew it. Those crocks of fermenting cabbage sitting in the cellar were producing lactic acid bacteria, especially a strain called Lactobacillus plantarum, that modern science has now shown can enhance natural killer cell activity and reduce the inflammatory cytokines linked to chronic disease. Think about that. A jar of salted cabbage doing what expensive probiotic capsules promise but rarely deliver. The Amish served kraut with their richest meals because they understood, through generations of trial and wisdom, that heavy food needs a living counterbalance. We stopped making sauerkraut at home when refrigeration and convenience foods took over, and our guts have been paying the price ever since. Here is your move. Get a head of cabbage, slice it thin, massage it with 2 tablespoons of salt, pack it into a jar, and wait 3 weeks. Then eat 2 forkfuls with your biggest meal each day. Your Amish great-grandmother would approve. At number 18, going barefoot on dewy grass. Morning medicine under your feet. Picture this. A cool morning on an Amish homestead, mist still sitting low over the pasture, and the whole family walking out barefoot across the wet grass to start chores. The old folks called it toughening the constitution, and they swore it kept sickness away through the coldest months. Now scientists call this practice earthing, and the research is catching up to what those barefoot Amish farmers already knew. Studies have shown that direct skin contact with the Earth's surface reduces blood viscosity and lowers markers of chronic inflammation, 2 conditions that set the stage for cardiovascular disease and weakened immune defenses. The cold dew adds another layer, triggering a mild stress response in the body that actually strengthens it over time. Researchers call this hormesis, the principle that small, manageable stresses make biological systems more resilient. We traded this away when we started wearing rubber-soled shoes on every surface and paving over every patch of earth between our front door and our car. The fix is embarrassingly simple. Step outside barefoot onto wet grass for 10 minutes each morning. Let the cold wake up your circulation and let the ground reconnect your body to an electrical exchange we were designed for. The Amish never stopped doing it. Maybe that is why their morning energy puts ours to shame. At number 17, kerosene lamps instead of electric light. The glow that quietly guards you. Now this one sounds almost ridiculous. How could a kerosene lamp possibly protect anyone from disease? But here's what most people never hear about. Amish families who light their homes with kerosene and gas lamps are shielding themselves from one of the most damaging forces in modern life, blue light after sunset. Every LED screen, every overhead fluorescent, every phone you scroll before bed is flooding your eyes with a wavelength that tells your brain it is still daytime. Research from Harvard and the University of Haifa has shown that this evening, blue light exposure suppresses melatonin production. And melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it is a potent antioxidant that regulates immune surveillance and has documented anti-tumor properties. The Amish are not choosing kerosene to be old-fashioned. They are accidentally living inside the ideal circadian light environment. Their bodies produce melatonin on schedule every single night, and their immune systems benefit enormously. We gave this up the moment Edison flipped the switch, and we have been eroding our nighttime immunity ever since. Here is a simple change. After 7 in the evening, switch to amber or candlelight bulbs. Turn off the overheads. Use a single dim lamp. You are recreating the Amish light environment, and your body will thank you by morning. At number 16, raw milk from pasture-raised cows, straight from the barn to the blood. On an Amish farm, milk does not come in a carton. It comes warm from the udder of a grass-fed cow, strained through cloth, and poured into glasses at the breakfast table. And here is what decades of modern processing has hidden from you: that raw milk is a completely different substance than what sits in your refrigerator. The landmark Gabriella and Parsifal studies in Europe found that children raised on raw farm milk had dramatically lower rates of asthma, allergies, and eczema. The protective power comes from whey proteins like BSA and alpha-lactalbumin that pasteurization destroys, along with beneficial bacteria that colonize the gut and fortify the mucosal immune barrier. Amish children grow up drinking this milk daily, and their immune resilience reflects it. We moved to pasteurization for safety in a time of urban crowding and unregulated dairies, and the trade-off made sense then. But today, many of those original risks have vanished, while the immune cost remains. If raw milk is not legal or accessible near you, seek out vat-pasteurized, non-homogenized whole milk from grass-fed herds. It preserves far more of those immune-supportive fats and proteins than ultra-pasteurized store brands. The Amish drink their milk alive. Yours should be as close to living as you can get. At number 15, daily physical labor instead of exercise. Built strong without a gym membership. There is no Planet Fitness in Amish country, and nobody misses it. Amish men average over 18,000 steps a day. Amish women log more than 14,000. Not from jogging on a treadmill or doing 45 minutes on an elliptical, but from farming, building fences, kneading bread, hauling firewood, hanging laundry, and chasing children across a barnyard. Their bodies move in varied functional patterns all day long, and the health data shows it. This kind of sustained moderate activity increases circulating immune cells, reduces chronic inflammation markers like C-reactive protein, and slashes rates of metabolic syndrome, the cluster of conditions that opens the door to diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Here is what most people miss. A 1-hour gym session surrounded by 23 hours of sitting is not how the human body was built to function. The Amish pattern of continuous mixed movement mirrors what our ancestors did for thousands of years before desk jobs and television stole our motion. We did not stop moving because we got lazy. We stopped because modern life was engineered to remove movement from every daily task. You do not need a gym. Commit to 2 hours of mixed activity each day: walking, gardening, carrying, cleaning, and your immune profile starts shifting toward the Amish pattern within weeks. At number 14, wood ash tooth powder, the pioneer toothpaste that fought more than cavities. Before there was a toothpaste aisle, Amish families cleaned their teeth with something you have probably swept into a dustpan and thrown away: fine hardwood ash mixed with a pinch of salt. They dipped a damp cloth or twig brush into the powder and scrubbed every tooth and gum line, and their communities historically reported lower rates of gum disease than the general population. Now here's where it gets interesting. Modern medicine has recognized that gum disease is not just a mouth problem. It is a systemic inflammatory condition linked to heart disease, diabetes, and even Alzheimer's. The alkaline calcium carbonate in wood ash neutralizes the acidic environment where pathogenic oral bacteria thrive, essentially cutting off the fuel supply for the bacteria that silently drive inflammation throughout your entire body. The Amish understood that a clean mouth meant a strong body, long before any dentist made that connection on a research paper. We replaced ash with sugary, chemical-laden pastes and called it progress. You can reclaim the same mechanism today without a fireplace. Switch to a baking soda and salt rinse. The alkaline chemistry is identical, and brush your gums gently each night. You are doing what Amish families did by lamplight for 200 years, and you are fighting disease in places far deeper than your mouth. At number 13, bitter herb tonics in spring, the yearly reset the Amish never skipped. Every spring, like clockwork, Amish kitchens smelled sharp and earthy. Grandmothers brewed dark tonics from dandelion root, burdock, and yellow dock, bitter enough to make your face twist, and every member of the household drank a cup each morning. They called it cleaning the blood, and it was their annual ritual for shaking off the sluggishness of a long winter spent eating heavy, preserved foods. Modern science now validates exactly what they were doing. Those bitter compounds stimulate bile production and activate liver phase 2 detoxification enzymes, which clear accumulated metabolic waste and inflammatory compounds that quietly suppress your immune system. The bitter taste itself triggers a vagal nerve reflex the moment it hits your tongue, switching on your entire digestive and detoxification cascade like turning a key in an ignition. We lost this tradition when spring became just another season of processed convenience meals and year-round sameness in our diets. The Amish body got a deep internal cleaning every March. Ours does not. Here is how to bring it back. Brew a simple tea from roasted dandelion root each morning through March and April. You can find it in any health food store. Let the bitterness do its work, do not sweeten it, and feel your energy shift within a week. The Amish trusted the bitter taste. So should you. At number 12, communal singing and hymns, the immune boost hidden in harmony. Amish church services are long, slow, and filled with singing. For hours, the entire congregation lifts their voices together in hymns from the Ausbund, a hymnal that has been in use since the 1500s. There are no instruments, no performance, just the sound of a community breathing and singing as one body. And this is not merely a spiritual practice. It is a physiological intervention the Amish perform together every single week. Elevates secretory immunoglobulin A, the body's first-line mucosal antibody, and significantly reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that in excess suppresses immune function. The Amish are giving their immune systems a measurable weekly tune-up, and they have never thought of it in those terms. We traded communal singing for isolated earbuds and passive listening, and the biological cost is more than we realize. You do not need a congregation to reclaim this. Join a local choir. Sing with your family around the dinner table. Even humming steadily for 20 minutes a day activates the same deep breathing pattern and vagal stimulation that makes the Amish practice so powerful. Your voice is an immune tool you have been carrying your entire life and probably never used on purpose. At number 11, sleeping with the seasons, the clock your body still remembers. In an Amish home without electricity, bedtime is not a decision. It is dictated by the sun. When darkness falls early in November, Amish families are in bed by 8. When summer light stretches past 9, they stay up working and talking. Their sleep naturally expands in winter and contracts in summer, following a rhythm that almost no modern American maintains anymore. And this is not trivial. This seasonal sleep variation regulates the ratio of T helper 1 to T helper 2 immune cells. And disrupting this rhythm, which is exactly what we do when we keep identical schedules year-round under artificial light, is now linked to increased autoimmune flare-ups and higher susceptibility to infections. The Amish immune system shifts with the seasons because their sleep does. Ours stays flat, and our bodies pay the toll. We stopped sleeping with the sun when electric light made every night the same length, and our immune calendars lost their anchor. Now here is something you can start tonight. Shift your bedtime 30 minutes earlier as fall approaches and keep it there through winter. Let yourself have that extra rest. Do not set an alarm on days you do not need one. Your immune system is literally calibrated to expect longer winter sleep, and the Amish have been honoring that expectation for 2 centuries. If you have made it this far, you have already heard 10 Amish traditions that modern medicine either forgot or never studied. That is worth a like. Tap it right now so more people can find this. And if you have not subscribed to the Lost Amish Remedies, now is the time, because the next 10 secrets go deeper, including remedies that target inflammation at the cellular level and one final revelation that ties this entire list together. At number 10, fermented bean and chow chow relishes. The probiotic rainbow on every table. Open an Amish pantry and you will find rows of jars glowing amber, green, and red. That is chow chow, a fermented relish made from whatever the garden gave that season. Green beans, cabbage ends, peppers, cauliflower, onion, all chopped, salted, and left to ferment into a tangy, crunchy condiment that appeared at nearly every Amish meal. What makes chow chow special is not just that it is fermented, but that it delivers a rotating diversity of probiotic strains with every spoonful. And microbial diversity in the gut is now considered one of the strongest predictors of disease resistance. Stanford research found that people who eat more than 5 different fermented foods per week show significantly lower inflammatory markers than those who do not. The Amish were hitting that number effortlessly, spooning a different batch of chow chow onto their plates with every lunch and dinner. We lost this habit when canning shifted from fermentation to vinegar preservation, and when refrigerators replaced root cellars. The living cultures disappeared from our pantries, and our guts noticed. Get a jar of mixed vegetable fermented relish, or make your own with whatever vegetables you have, and eat a spoonful with lunch and dinner. You are giving your gut the microbial variety it needs to keep your immune system properly calibrated, one colorful forkful at a time. At number 9, wood smoke exposure in moderation. The gentle stress that builds stronger lungs. Amish families heat with wood and cook near open hearths. Their kitchens smell like hickory in January and cherry wood in March. Heavy smoke is absolutely harmful. Nobody argues otherwise, but the low-level, intermittent exposure from living in a wood-heated home tells a different story. Research on adaptive stress responses shows that small, repeated exposures to wood smoke particulates upregulate antioxidant enzymes like superoxide dismutase and glutathione, your body's own defense molecules, making lung tissue and immune cells more resilient against infection and oxidative damage. The Amish are not breathing heavy smoke. They live in an environment where mild natural stressors keep defenses in a constant state of gentle readiness, like an immune system warming up before the day begins. We sealed our homes airtight, filtered air to hospital-grade purity, and assumed removing every irritant would make us healthier. Instead, we created immune systems that overreact to pollen and crumble at the first real challenge. You do not need a wood stove. Occasional time near a campfire or fireplace gives a gentle version of this stimulus. But the deeper Amish lesson is this: their immunity is not built in sterile comfort. It is forged by 1,000 small natural encounters we have designed out of modern life. At number 8, children playing in barn dust, the asthma vaccine that grows on a farm. Here is one of the most replicated findings in all of immunology. Amish children who grow up playing in barns, rolling in hay, and tumbling around livestock have asthma rates 4 to 6 times lower than the American average. That is not a marginal difference, it is a chasm. Researchers at the University of Arizona discovered why. Endotoxins in barn dust activate the innate immune pathway through a protein called A20, which trains a child's immune system not to overreact. That training prevents the chronic inflammatory spiral underlying allergies, asthma, and autoimmune conditions. Amish children receive this environmental immunization daily, running through clouds of dust carrying the molecular instructions their immune cells need to develop properly. We moved children indoors onto sanitized carpets and plastic playmats and wondered why childhood asthma rates skyrocketed over 50 years. The barn was the classroom, and we closed it. For adults, the principle still holds. Spending regular time in microbially rich environments, farms, forests, gardens enriched with livestock compost, exposes your immune system to those same calibrating endotoxins. You may not have a barn, but you can find a farm stand, volunteer at a stable, or build a compost pile that puts your hands in real, living soil. At number 7, apple cider vinegar as a daily infection guard, the throat shield in a brown jug. In Amish households, apple cider vinegar was not a wellness trend. It was a frontline weapon, pulled off the shelf every autumn when cold season crept into the community. Amish mothers did not sip it casually. They used it with precision. A tablespoon diluted for gargling every morning, and a tablespoon in water before the evening meal, specifically to guard the throat and gut against the infections that could tear through a large household in days. The science backs them up. Acetic acid has direct antimicrobial activity against pathogens including E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus, and the cloudy mother culture floating in unfiltered vinegar contains Acetobacter strains that reinforce the gut's mucosal immune barrier. This was not a cure-all, and the Amish never treated it as one. It was targeted, seasonal defense. We moved away from vinegar tonics when pharmaceutical cold remedies promised faster, easier solutions, and the brown jug got pushed to the back of the pantry. Bring it forward again. Gargle with a diluted tablespoon each morning during cold and flu months, and stir 1 tablespoon into a glass of water before dinner. Raw, unfiltered, with the mother intact. The Amish kept a jug within arm's reach from October through March, and their household stayed standing, while neighbors fell one by one to winter illness. At number 6, extended breastfeeding and multi-generational immunity, 2 years that protect a lifetime. In Amish families, breastfeeding for 2 years or longer is not considered unusual. It is simply what mothers do. And in a community where 3 generations often live under one roof, sharing meals, sharing air, and sharing every microbe that passes through the household, this extended nursing creates a compounding protective effect that most of modern America has abandoned entirely. Breast milk is not just nutrition. It transfers secretory IgA antibodies, lactoferrin, and oligosaccharides that actively program the infant's developing immune system. Research shows that children breastfed beyond 1 year carry measurably stronger immune responses well into adulthood, a gift that keeps giving decades after the last feeding. The Amish mother is not just feeding her child. She is encoding immune intelligence that will protect her family line for a generation. We shortened breastfeeding timelines when formula marketing and workplace pressures told mothers that 6 months was plenty, and an entire chain of immune inheritance began to thin. Even if this stage of life is behind you, the principle matters deeply. Support the young mothers in your family with this knowledge. Encourage longer nursing when possible. Because in Amish communities, they understand something we have forgotten. The immune resilience of an entire family does not start in a doctor's office. It starts at the breast in the first 2 years of life. At number 5, colloidal oatmeal baths for skin and systemic inflammation, the quiet healer in a handful of grain. When an Amish child broke out in a fever rash or an elderly grandfather's joints flared hot and swollen, the remedy was the same: a warm bath clouded with finely ground oats. This tradition stretched back to their Swiss-German ancestors, and every Amish household kept a bag of plain whole oats set aside specifically for bathing. It looked simple. It was anything but. Colloidal oatmeal contains compounds called avenanthramides that have been shown to inhibit NFKB, the master inflammatory signaling pathway that drives conditions from eczema to cardiovascular disease to cancer progression. When you soak in oat-steeped water, these compounds absorb directly through the skin and reduce systemic inflammation. Not just surface irritation, but deep, body-wide inflammatory activity that undermines your immune defenses. The Amish used this for fevers, rashes, joint pain, and winter skin, and the science says every one of those instincts was correct. We replaced oat baths with steroid cream creams and anti-inflammatory pills, treating symptoms from the outside while ignoring the whole body mechanism the Amish access it through a bathtub. Grind plain whole oats into fine powder, dissolve a cup in a warm bath, and soak for 20 minutes. Let the water do the work. It is a 200-year-old Amish prescription that modern pharmacology is only now learning to respect. At number 4, fasting on rest days, the empty plate that fills your defenses. In Amish communities, rest days tied to religious reflection were not just days off from labor. They were days of lighter eating. Many older Amish members naturally ate just 1 or 2 simple meals on these quiet days, not from deprivation but from a rhythm pairing spiritual stillness with physical simplicity. What scientists now call time-restricted feeding, the Amish have practiced without a name for generations. Fasting periods of 16 or more hours trigger autophagy, the cellular recycling process that clears damaged proteins, dysfunctional mitochondria, and even precancerous cells. Think of it as a deep cleaning at the cellular level, with your immune system doing the work. Research from the Salk Institute shows that compressing eating into an 8-hour window reduces inflammatory markers and improves immune cell regeneration in older adults. We stopped fasting when round-the-clock food access became normal and snacking turned into a national pastime. The Amish Rest Day reminds us that the body needs an empty plate as much as a full one. Skip breakfast 2 or 3 days a week, eat your first meal at noon, and your last by 8. You are giving your cells the silence they need to repair and rebuild. The Amish understood that sometimes healing begins when the eating stops. At number 3, Black Walnut Hull Tincture, the dark remedy for hidden invaders. Of all the remedies in an Amish medicine chest, few were guarded as closely as the small dark bottle of Black Walnut Hull Tincture. This was serious medicine reserved for a specific and silent threat: intestinal parasites and fungal infections that could weaken a person over months without obvious symptoms. Every spring, alongside their bitter herb tonics, Amish families administered this tincture to the whole household as a preventive sweep. The active compound, juglone, has demonstrated potent antifungal, antibacterial, and antiparasitic properties in published research. And here's what modern medicine is catching up to. Chronic low-grade parasitic or fungal burden is now recognized as a hidden driver of immune suppression and systemic inflammation. Your body can fight an invisible war for years, slowly losing ground without you knowing why your energy faded or your joints ached. We abandoned plant-based anti-parasitic care when pharmaceuticals took over, and the idea of a yearly gut cleanse sounded old-fashioned. Meanwhile, millions of Americans likely carry low-level infections they have never been tested for. Take 15 to 20 drops of Black Walnut Hull Tincture in water for 2 weeks each spring. The Amish timed it with the season of renewal, understanding that clearing hidden invaders was the foundation of staying well all year. At number 2, deep community and mutual aid, the medicine no pharmacy can sell. When an Amish family member falls ill, something happens that rarely occurs in modern America. The community shows up, not with a text message. They arrive with food, labor, and daily visits. They milk the cows, tend to the children, sit by the bedside, and do not leave until the crisis passes. This is not just kindness, it is a health practice with staggering effects. Loneliness and social isolation increase the risk of early death by 26%. Researchers identified a pattern called conserved transcriptional response to adversity. When a person is chronically isolated, cortisol rises and inflammatory gene expression increases, while antiviral defenses drop. Your immune system literally weakens when you are alone. The Amish structured their society to ensure no one faces illness in isolation, and their health outcomes reflect it. We lost this when families scattered across states, front porches became back decks, and independence was valued above interdependence. The cost has been enormous and invisible. Here is what you can do. Build or join a small group that checks in weekly, shares meals, and shows up when someone struggles. It does not need to be a church. It needs to be real. The Amish teach us that the most powerful immune booster on earth is not a supplement. It is a neighbor who shows up with soup and refuses to leave. At number 1, living in a microbial cloud, the Amish home biome, the secret that changes everything. After 19 specific remedies, the number 1 Amish secret is not a single remedy at all. It is the total environment, the cumulative microbial cloud of an Amish home. Unpasteurized food on the table, barn dust through open windows, animal hair on every surface, fermented preserves in the cellar, garden soil tracked across the floor, well water in every glass, and dozens of family members sharing microbes across generations under one roof. A landmark 2016 study in the New England Journal of Medicine compared Amish farm children to genetically similar Hutterite children on industrialized farms. Amish children had completely different immune profiles, more neutrophils, fewer eosinophils, and innate pathways activated in ways that made them essentially resistant to allergic and inflammatory disease. It was not one thing, it was everything, all at once, every day. We dismantled this microbial world, one convenience at a time. Pasteurization, air filtration, antimicrobial soap, sealed windows, concrete over soil. Each step made sense alone. Together, they stripped our immune systems of the training ground they evolved to depend on. You cannot replicate an Amish farmstead, but you can move in the right direction. Get a pet, open your windows, garden without gloves, eat fermented foods daily, spend time around animals, stop sterilizing every surface. The Amish teach us something medicine is only beginning to accept. Disease resistance is not built by avoiding germs. It is built by living among them. Your immune system was never meant to be shielded from the world. It was meant to be trained by it. Hit like and tell me, Team Sauerkraut, Team Barefoot Mornings, or Team Toss the Sanitizer. Subscribe to the Lost Amish Remedies so you never miss a video. Remember, the most powerful medicine isn't in a pharmacy. It's in an Amish root cellar, waiting for you to remember.